Hello and welcome back to Vendor Training with Alexandra
And Doré.
from Musical Theatre Market. Today we are going to be covering
Stand and branding.
very big subject, possibly one of the most important when it comes to exhibiting or vending at an event. Specifically, we're going to be covering your stand identity, so do you look like you, and maximizing your space, getting as much product in there in a way that doesn't overwhelm people.
So your stand identity, part one.
Part one.
Make your stand a unique shopping experience. So what we mean by that is...
in a sea of stands, why would someone come over to yours?
Yes.
What's different about yours? That goes into the next point of what makes your products different, and what is your USP, your unique selling point? Why out of all the posters or all the t-shirts or all the whatever that there is in the room, why should they buy yours rather than someone else's? What is different about you?
And just under that as well is, do they enjoy being at your stand? Is it friendly? Is it approachable? Is it relaxed? Do they get a warm fuzzy feeling when they stand there, basically?
And also, this is something that people don't think about, but does your stand feel too clean? Too like everything's perfect, so I feel like I can't go over it and interrupt it and look at products because
I might mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on from that, what is your vibe? Who are you? What is your branding? What is your style? What are your colors? What are your patterns? What are the things that if someone were to follow you on Instagram or whatever and then find you in person, would they think you are the same business?
Are you instantly recognizable?
Exactly.
Using tablecloths properly. Oof. What is the purpose of the tablecloth, first of all? So the first thing is it just provides it makes it look finished. It makes the display look finessed. Secondly is it hides so much stuff under your table. So it makes it just look neat and tidy, even though under your table might be a mass of products and extras and
boxes
whatnot.
Everywhere. Can't see it because you've got a lovely tablecloth.
So it's all calm on the outside and all chaos on the inside.
Sums up the market.
The other thing is with your tablecloth, do make sure that it's not a very busy tablecloth. Having a color is fine.
Having a pattern is fine. But if you've got like a really, really heavy floral, then people are going to be too distracted by that to look at your products, especially if you've got a smaller product. If you've got something that's like a tiny piece of jewelry and you've got such a busy tablecloth, the focus is not going to be on your product.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a good example is if you sell soaps, for example, we kind of associate sort of blue and white check, for example, with like soapy, natural, handmade kind of thing. If your whole tablecloth is this check, it's going to be quite distracting, and it's going to take people's eye away from your products, which is not what you want. But if you have a plain white tablecloth and you maybe have a little runner of this blue and white check, that's okay, because that helps establish your brand and your vibe.
But it doesn't overwhelm your product.
Exactly. Do you need a printed tablecloth? No, you don't. You don't have to have a tablecloth that's printed with your brand and all that. Something plain white, something that you bought off the shelf.
A nice simple pattern.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to necessarily have your logo.
You don't have to spend all this extra money.
Exactly. That's not necessary. It's maybe nice, but it's not necessary, because you'll have other things that say this is my brand.
And then table sizes tend to be standard. So if you're not sure what the exact size is going to be, to buy the tablecloth, just Google like a standard 6-foot exhibitor table or a standard 4-foot exhibitor table, or whatever size is being provided, if it is provided. And that will tell you how big your tablecloth needs to be. exhibition-specific tablecloths do tend to come in standard sizes anyway.
Yeah, and there are tons of different types of tablecloths. There are the ones that you just lay over, there are ones that stretch over your table, ones that have an open back. So
we would definitely suggest the ones that where the back is open, so that if you do have things under your table,
you can get them.
You're not fighting with the tablecloth to get them.
But just know there are other options as well.
And also just on the front, make sure it doesn't hang over too much where people end up stepping
No
on the
tripping
tablecloth.
hazards.
Yeah. Or if they step on it and end up pulling your things down.
Yes.
So make sure that it's kind of off the floor, at least just a little bit there.
I've also heard things like heard someone say that they put tassels around the sides of their tails, which tails. They put tassels around the side of their table, but ended up regretting doing that because they had kids pulling on things. So while you do want to decorate your stand, just also be mindful of, can it damage your product? Things like that. Is it going to be pulled? Part 2 is using signage and displays that reflect you. So maybe it's in your colors, maybe it's just the same style. Like if you've got a very colorful retro brand and you're using very modern, blocky, black and white stands and signage, then it's going to be a bit confusing, and something not necessarily immediately recognizable from the attendee's point of view, but they will sort of feel a bit at unease. So just keeping it all cohesive. Is this you? Is this signage that is clear and easy to read? Is it your colors, your branding, stuff like that?
Yeah. Make sure you display your contact details clearly so people can find you after the event, because you don't want this event just to be like a one-off. They bought stuff and off they go. You do want people to be able to come back and find you, whether it be on Etsy or a website or Instagram or whatever. So make sure you've got those contact details displayed clearly, and the name of your stand.
Yeah, your logo.
Your branding. Be clear.
Yeah, have your logo, have your socials, have your Etsy and a website if you have one. Have those things clearly listed so someone can find the information if they're looking for it, because people are more likely to try and find it than to ask you.
Yeah.
And decide whether you're providing shopping bags. Now, this is an interesting thing that not a lot of people consider. Shopping bags are not mandatory. That's not something you have to provide. Most people carry shopping bags themselves now. However, if you do decide you want to provide shopping bags, maybe because you tend to sell lots of product at a time, or it's big, or it's awkward, then you can provide bags. But we would recommend using that as a marketing opportunity.
Yeah, if you're going to be providing bags, you might as well pay that extra little bit and have the bags branded.
Yeah. Or even just put a sticker with your logo on it. There are loads of different ways to make sure that people know, she came from that stand. I'm going to go have a look.
Exactly. And then quality packaging with your branding. So sometimes people have really, really beautiful products, but then they don't consider how they present that to the customer. How are you packaging it up? Or you might have really nice packaging and then you dump the whole lot in like a £1 bin.
Yeah, that
and
doesn't.
It's just it's jarring.
Yeah, what you don't want to do is undermine the value and the talent that's gone into making your product with packaging that just makes the whole thing feel cheap or unimportant. So don't undermine your own products. Business cards, pretty important. Nowadays, there's loads of different options. I mean, you've got physical business cards, you've got digital business cards. How do you know which one to use?
Do you use both? Do you use, what do you go? Quite frankly, the choice is up to you.
Doesn't matter.
There are pros and cons of using both. Using physical over digital, and there are pros and cons of using digital over physical. Yeah. But considering the cost of them, it's really so small that, I don't know, I think for us, it's worth having it both ways.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of things do you need to put on your business cards? Your business name, obviously, your logo, because that's what makes you recognizable.
Who are you?
Contact information.
Yeah.
Um,
That is also a case of, if you do customizable products, maybe you have an email on there.
yeah.
Contact information is not necessarily again, mandatory. It might depend on the type of business you have, but definitely, sorry, just skipping down the list, definitely social medias and Etsy and website. Maybe that is your contact info. Maybe that is where they find you.
And then a coupon code is a useful way of seeing who came to your.
Yeah, you can figure out
how
whether
people
the
got
people,
to know.
yeah, the people that came to the
Yeah.
event, whether they are now buying from you again. It's another way of seeing if your efforts are paying off.
Exactly.
And we also just skip past QR code, but maybe that's helpful. Maybe the QR code takes them to your Etsy or to your social medias. It's easier for people to scan a QR code than it is for them to type something in. So just keep an idea of that as well.
We do have loads of people in the past. We've experienced people coming past the stand and they might not need the product immediately, but they do want to buy it. And so they do like to take physical cards. A lot of people have asked for business cards.
Yes.
So don't underestimate the value of that. But then equally, we've had loads of people just going past and scanning.
Yeah.
I think because musical theatre also, it attracts such a variety. The demographic is so wide.
Yes.
That you attract all sorts of people.
There's a big age range. So you've got people who prefer digital and you've got people who prefer having a physical card. It also doesn't need to be a card. You could use a leaflet, but a physical find me again and a digital one. With digital, I know you can get ones that just stay on your phone, but I would recommend having a QR code somewhere, whether that's just on a little sign or whether you've got a big shell scheme and you're able to put it up at the top somewhere. Have that QR code available. Maximizing your space. This is something that is very interesting to figure out when you are specifically new to vending. And as your products grow, if you have a lot of items, how do you take this small space you've been given and display everything so you're not overwhelming your customers, but you've got everything visible? The first tip I think we would say is don't be afraid of using vertical space. So use layers, use boxes to stand extra stuff on, create those tiers so that you're not just having everything flat. It also means people can see your stuff from a bit further away. If they're not directly in front of your stand, it means they can still go, ooh, what is that? I want to go have a look.
And this is where a mock setup again is extremely helpful because you can really play around with those things, and you're not trying to figure it out on the day when you have a time constraint in getting that done.
I would definitely recommend when you are figuring out how to display your product to try and figure out a way that they can stand or sort of stand tilted rather than having them flat on the table, because it's easier for people to see from a distance and from up close.
And it takes up less space.
It takes up less space and it just feels, I don't know, like people can touch and interact with your products, which you want them to do, because if people don't do that, they're less likely to buy.
Keep your area clean and tidy. We often have in the past, we found where people will come and they maybe have a drink with them and then they'll put the drink on our table and then
leave.
Off they go.
Bye.
And we're left with their rubbish.
Yeah.
So, take those things away, dispose of it, clean up any mess.
If you're creating mess, if you're eating stuff, don't keep the wrappers on the table. It just creates this I don't know if I want to go over there. It's a bit sort of
messy,
dirty. And tidy is an interesting balance. You don't want stuff everywhere. You don't want it to look like a charity shop or a flea market. It's a very different environment at a craft market because people are not really going in trying to find the treasure. They want everything laid out so they can see it. But at the same time,
they're not looking for cheap and cheerful like you would maybe with a charity shop. They're looking for
those more expensive handmade items.
Yeah, not on the high street kind of things.
Yes, exactly. But the thing with tidy as well, like I've mentioned in a previous day, is that you don't want your stand to be too tidy.
Clinical.
What I mean by that is clinical, to the point where people are like, oh, I don't know if I can touch or have a proper look at this thing because what if I move something out of place? What if it's not the way that they want it? So don't keep your stand too clinical, but equally just keep it nice and tidy, inviting. It doesn't feel like there's rubbish everywhere.
There's also the other thing with keeping things tidy is if you're pulling things out from under the table, extra stock or whatever, make sure you push it back in so you're not creating tripping hazards for yourself. Also, make sure you don't push it too far in where you're creating a tripping hazard for the people on the other side.
Exactly.
So it is, clean and tidy is about accessibility. It's about the optics. It's all of that. Making sure you can find things.
Exactly.
Where did you put that pen when you just had it? Those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've covered no tripping hazards. Specifically, do keep an eye out if you push something under the table, because it does have a tendency to pop out and you don't want any of your customers to trip. That's just not good for anyone.
Doesn't look nice either.
No.
Consider accessibility needs. There are people coming past in wheelchairs and things like that. So as much as you're using vertical space, if you go too high, you make it inaccessible for somebody that's in a wheelchair.
You're taking out a huge chunk of your audience. You're not creating that nice experience for everybody.
Yeah. So even if you do have some things that's higher up, maybe have some, like a sample of those things that are easy to pick up, easy to handle, easy to touch. If those are your kind of products.
Yeah, if you have a whole bunch of different posters, I mean, you can take them up as high as you want, within reason, but you can also have a portfolio, a folder for people to flick through, and maybe put the bigger things towards the top, big posters, things like that, and keep the smaller stuff at a more reasonable level so that you can have those things at eye level, and the bigger things, it doesn't feel too far away.
Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But keep an eye out for that. Can anybody who comes past your stand enjoy your products? Can they see your products? Can they interact with them?
Yeah. Replenish your stock regularly.
Yeah, you don't need every single thing. Like if you brought 100 versions of one product, that's a lot. But if you brought let me pick a better number. If you brought 20 t-shirts, you don't need to put 20 of the exact same t-shirt out. Put a few and then replenish. That's probably the best way to do it, because you're not overwhelming people. You're also creating that sense of urgency because
they think you might only have one of those left. They don't necessarily always ask.
Yeah, exactly. And if you sell something that people wear or they need to try on, have a mirror. Make it easy for them. If they can see what it looks like on them, they are more likely to buy it. Think of the amount of times that you've been in a shop and you've wanted to try on a top and they don't have changing rooms. Do you tend to buy it and see what happens, or do you tend to put it back and go, I don't know about it? Have that mirror so that you are increasing the chances of people going, oh my gosh, this fits way better than I thought it would. This looks even better with my hair. This hat is perfect.
It's also, people often take photos of themselves.
Exactly.
And that's a way for them to then
promote your stand.
Exactly. So it's just a little something to think about. It's not a
necessary, but it
nice
probably would help you if you have wearables.
Yeah.
That is everything for vendor training day 4. I was going to do 2. 4.
It wasn't as long as we thought it would be.
No.
It went so well.
It went very well.
Well done you.
We will be back tomorrow, day 5, with mindset and expectations.
Ooh, exciting.
We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.